So Pearce is my 3. He's your 5. Let's talk Pearce. What do you got?
So again, let's start with the thing for him first. Like the narrative on James Pearce is the off-field stuff does not appear to be particularly good, and for him, it seems to be a character / work ethic problem at more than Mike Green's were multiple sexual assault accusations. James Pearce, it appears to be is he going to work? Does he want it enough? Like, is it actually like is he putting in the effort to be the player that we need him to be at this spot? But it's been an interesting kind of journey, if you like, on the James Pearce thing, because a year ago this guy was sort of in the way too early 2025 mock drafts. Like James Pearce Jr. was number 1 overall in some of those drafts. He was a guy that was going to go in he was Abdul Carter, right? He was the top guy a year ago heading into this process because of everything that's obvious on tape, like crazy twitchy athlete, guy that ran a 4.5 or whatever it was at the combine, incredibly twitchy, incredibly explosive, straight line speed, burst, all those kinds of things. Really nice closing burst when he gets a clear line of sight to the quarterback. Like that guy could eat up the ground and bring him down. He's got quite a lot of moves as well. Like he's got some ability. Now, when you come from that perspective of like, hey, this guy could be the number 1 pick, and then you start diving into the tape, well, then you go, okay, well, there's more flaws here than I'm comfortable with, right? He looks sort of Arden Key levels of skinny, right? And that, as much as I don't think weight, just a number, right? He's 243 pounds. We're like Jalen Walker at 248 is fine. So what difference does 5 pounds make? I don't think weight is a particularly big thing for edge rushers, but skinny light scares me. Those are the guys that have had a track record of not working out tremendously well. You think the sort of Shalik Calhouns of the world and even Arden Keys, like these guys are long and light and just do not have the weight to hold up on the edge against these big offensive tackles who are also long, right? Like in order to, it's not like you're going to win a length battle against an offensive tackle with 35-inch arms. You're going to be, generally speaking, in the same area if you're a long edge rusher. Only the guy now outweighs you by 100 pounds, so you're going to lose. So that's a little bit scary. I do think he packs a bigger punch than Arden Key. Like he's got more power and strength to him, but that's a little bit concerning. And then like he's just got so many plays where he does not get the guy on the ground. Like it's weird. I don't know if his turning circle is amazing, but like I keep coming back to this play. I've mentioned it a bunch of times, but the Arkansas quarterback, he had a clean one-on-one unblocked run at him, and that guy shaked him out of his shoes, and Pearce just face planted. Like that's okay. It's an athletic quarterback, but it's a quarterback one-on-one in the open field, and you didn't touch him. Like not only did you not like end the play, kill him, but you didn't even like you just fell over and face planted. Like you didn't affect the play other than he took some time out of his day to make you look ridiculous before running out into the open space that you vacated. That's a problem. That can't happen.
There's some recklessness, I would say, to his play style: run game, pass game, tackling. So you mentioned the Brandon Graham comp, which are longtime listeners might understand, not body type or anything like that, but the style in that. The guy's going to have he'll have a lot of what I like to call them half-man wins, right? So you're not completely defeating the tackle and getting past him, but you're getting the corner, right? You're getting around the corner. There's still some engagement there. Now, can you disengage and finish the play? That's where I think he struggles, so he disrupts and then might get washed out. So he might force the quarterback to move, but then they're, break and contain or whatever it is. So there's some kind of the opposite of what we described with Jalen Walker, where I think Jalen Walker is outstanding at that, shedding the block and making sure that the QB doesn't escape. Pearce has some issues, whether it is one-on-one trying to tackle or just in those half-man wins trying to keep his balance. But I agree with a lot of what you said, too. I thought watching him last year and into this year, I'm like, man, this dude looks like a wide receiver. I was concerned his weight, because you mentioned weight's just a number. I was concerned it would be in the 220-something. I thought we were going to say this dude's 6'5", 227, 6'4", 225. And then I'd be looking through the archive. Has anybody done this? Has anybody done this at 225? And there's not many, if any. So the fact that he's over 240, fine. But he feels small, right? He feels small. I don't think he's bad against the run. It's just I think there is a finishing issue, a tackling issue. I think there's some recklessness to his game, but I think there's enough disruption to his game that it balances it out. I mean, I was watching him move last year. I was trying to think of somebody. It might be Von Miller, somebody that was that smooth, winning to the outside and then winning on an inside counter, that with the smoothness with which he puts his foot in the ground, gets inside a tackle, was outstanding for him. Like I get why people were talking about him number one overall. Now you add in the effort level thing and the off the field, and people didn't love him at Tennessee. And he also has a small sample. He played under 1,000 snaps. Is that just Tennessee's rotation? Why weren't they relying on him for more than 50 snaps per game? All of those are fair questions as well.
All right, that's enough of that, Steve. Over 50% of the people listening to this are not subscribed right now. So click that button, and then we can get back to whatever it is Steve's telling you about. Yeah, so it's funny, like the kind of journey of analysis with him. On the one hand, you look at the previous hype levels where it was number one overall pick, top pass rusher off the board kind of thing. You're like, okay, look, there's enough flaws on the tape that I think that's a bit overkill. But I almost feel like we've gone too far in the other direction now, where it's like everyone's now hyper focused on the flaws. It's like, well, why doesn't he finish that well? Why doesn't is his change of direction great? Is he too light? And now it's like, okay, yeah, look, those are problems. Like I admit, those are concerns or reasons why I'm not putting him up there with Abdul Carter. But again, in this draft in particular, right? And where does the consensus board have him? It's got him below the two other sort of freak show guys, right? Yeah, it's got, so Shamar Stewart is 14 on the consensus board, Michael Williams is 15, and James Pearce Jr. is now down at 26. Now, look, who knows how much of that is being driven by the off-field stuff, but if we limit it to on the field for a moment, yes, there are concerns by his tape, but not to the point where I'm willing to drop him below the other guys whose tape is also concerning. It's like,
right.
Let's tap the brakes on how far we're concerned by James Pearce, because the good is really good. Like, let's not get out of control. Like his burst and explosion and twitchiness, like that is freaky. So I just think, look, we've been at two different extremes for James Pearce, and he probably belongs somewhere in the middle, at least on the field, right? He was probably never really deserving of the number one overall pick type of hype, but I don't think he's a second round pick either. He's firmly a middle of the first round caliber player who in back-to-back seasons had PFF pass rushing grades of like 90 above and slightly below one given year, 50 plus pressures, in both seasons with not a ton of pass rushing snaps. Like that's going to be an extremely good pass rushing win rate. I haven't checked exactly what it is. I'll see if I can load that up on the fly, but this is somebody that's been incredibly productive despite not being the most well-rounded technician in the world. Like let's not go overboard.
I have his pass rush win rate because someone in the chat said he reminds me of K'Lavon Chaisson, or that's the comp. I was like, nothing close to Chaisson for me, because
so much more productive.
Pierce's pass rush win rate is 22% for back-to-back years. Chaisson finished at 13. So when we get to Shamar Stewart, who's right around 13 at his best, all I'm saying, the profile for a first-round successful edge rusher very rarely is unproductive as K'Lavon Chaisson, very rarely is unproductive as Trayvon Walker, Tyree Wilson for his career, or Shamar Stewart. They profile exactly how James Pearce has profiled in his production.
I mean, I can give you better than that. Over the last 2 years combined, right, his pass rush win rate is 23.2%, which is behind Abdul Carter at 23.5%, and he has a better pressure rate with that pass rush win rate. So he has been, this is again, like, let's remember what the kind of given is with James Pearce. Yes, there are concerns, and why don't you get as many sacks as it looks like you should? But let's remember, he has been extremely productive. Like, this is someone that gets an absolute ton of pressure, despite all of these things that we're saying might be problems, right? The relative lack of size, the relative lack of turning them into sacks, the relative lack of playing time, the relative lack of sample size. There's quite a lot to be concerned about. But over here, we've got a guy who's been one of the most productive pass rushers in this draft class.
The one thing I'll add about Pearce, so uber productive. So let me answer this. People are asking about the character concerns. I think it's unfair to you haven't even mentioned Jermaine Burton in the same sentence as James Pearce. I don't think it's that level. No, but Burton Burton is closer to like Isaiah Bond with Texas, where you're at multiple spots and no one's saying anything good about you, and they're not really believers in you. The Pearce thing is all around, does he love the game enough? And that could be from levels of, in Burton's case, the guy likes the nightlife, right? Versus Pearce might just not love the game enough. And in that scout speak, Sam, is like, do I want to spend a top 15 pick on this guy? That's where I feel like it's a little softer than some of the other extremes. That's what I'm getting. And I just want to add, this is where, because Dane Brugler in The Beast, as you mentioned, one of the weaknesses, interview process will be crucial. One NFL scout says, quote, I want to be convinced that he loves this, end quote. It's kind of the extent of what Dane's bringing up here. It's a lot of, does he love the game enough?
Yeah. Okay. So you're right. I think it isn't where Jermaine Burton's was, where literally everybody that you spoke to did not have a good word to say about him. And some people that were
he's off our board. Like, he's going to be off half the boards in the league. Like, we're not even going to play in that world.
Yes. Right. Including like his coach, right? Like people directly connected to Burton were not saying positive things about him. And in fact, we're saying pretty negative things about him. So that was about as extreme as you can get. Now, where I would push back on you a little bit is now, okay, number one, I think you're right. It's interesting that the extent of it in Dane's piece is pretty small. Like I actually expected some more details on that in The Beast because of how thorough Dane is and how much information he gets and all that kind of stuff. So that is notable that Dane sort of limits it to that world of like, oh, does he love this enough? Right. Where I would push back is the does he love it enough takes you into the world of like bad face of like bullshit scout terms, right? Where it's like, oh, look, he plays a trumpet. That's a red flag because he obviously is not spending all his time playing football. We can't have that. So there's a world where you start saying, does he love it enough? And it just lumps it into this bucket of like ridiculous things that scouts ask that don't actually mean anything. I don't think it's that, because I think there's more information out there, you know, whether Bob McGinn's scouting reports where he talks to a bunch of anonymous scouts and they just unload on guys. There have been a lot where it's more detailed than that. It's not just like, hey, he also likes, you know, playing video games, or he also likes studying, you know, World War II history. It's like, no, there's some problems here. It's like he doesn't always show up to practice. He doesn't, you know, necessarily learn the playbook enough. Like there are some actual work ethic problems that we're seeing talked about. Now, again, it's interesting that did not show up in Dane's report. So like Mike Green, it's messy, right? It's not just this clean, like Jermaine Burton was easy. Everyone thinks this guy's an asshole. We can do that's easy. This is more complicated than that, where it's like in some places, it's not, you know, it's not being made to be a big deal. In other places, it's like there are people at Tennessee that didn't like the way this guy was doing was working hard enough, right? And that is arguably why he wasn't, you know, playing that every down role that you were talking about. Like it's just it's awkward. It's not as clean as some other guys, but I do think it's more than just, you know, hey, he also has a hobby.
Let me just wrap up the Pearce discussion right here. There's a level of production from a PFF lens that is really, really strong. There's a level of production from a finishing plays standpoint that I think is concerning. And if I'm going to personally value that more these days, the shed blocks, finish plays, he's missing that. The other part of his production that's concerning for me is how often he jumps the snap. Remember former first rounder D Ford, who famously was offsides in an AFC championship for the Chiefs. D Ford used to jump the snap. And you would say, this guy's got great burst, but he also had this anticipation, which tends to not work as well at the NFL level. He was a snap jumper at Auburn, undersized, get up the field burst type of guy, had a lot of free pressures because he would do that. I think Pearce has some of that as well, which is one of those things which is like good anticipation, maybe when you're playing at home, doesn't always work on the road. And so it actually can inflate production a little bit if you're more of a guesser and you could, you know, get drawn off sides, whatever it might be. So that's the other last concern I have.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.